There are some vehicles in World of Tanks that I'm completely ashamed to have in my garage, and even more so when I'm forced to take them out onto the battlefield when they win the poll during my streams. The KV220 is certainly one of those. In the pretty much 2,000 days that I've had this vehicle in my garage, I've played it a whopping 33 times. And every time I play it, I feel like I have to go and have a shower afterwards. Here's why. The KV220 is the hull of a Tier 7 Soviet heavy tank, the KV3, with the turret of the Tier 5 Soviet heavy tank, the KV1, albeit the stock version of the KV1 turret. Slapped in at Tier 5 and given preferential matchmaking so it never has to meet Tier 7 opponents. Who would have thought if you take the hull armor of a Tier 7 tank, drop it down a couple of tiers and make it so it cannot actually meet the tier that it was forced to play against, it would be absolutely outrageous what this vehicle is capable of doing. Pretty much against your opponents. There's no tank that will be able to penetrate the KV222 reliably if you just angle the armor like this and drive towards them. They're going to bounce off you pretty much every single time unless they have exceptionally high gold penetration. The turret is the weak point on this vehicle, and so knowledgeable opponents will fire rounds, probably premium rounds, either at the cheeks of the KV222 or alternatively hit the flush turret front where it's flat with no space protection. But the problem is, at low tiers, do you expect, considering how infrequently you do see these things on the battlefield, that the player base is going to know that? Do you think that the player base is going to have watched my tank review on the vehicle? Do you think that the player base is going to be like this Matilda, i.e. firing gold ammunition and also having ridiculous penetration as standard on the Matilda? And you can see that I don't really give a darn, because I've pretty much got double the hit points there of the Tier 4 British medium tank. Now, the KV222, it definitely doesn't have the best gun on this vehicle. Its standard penetration of its 76mm is 99, and you do have to fire a lot of gold with this vehicle to have 121mm of pen. But 121mm of pen is definitely workable at Tier 6. Now, it would be a completely different matter if this vehicle didn't have preferential matchmaking and had to fight Tier 7 tanks. Then it would really suffer and it would be unable to go through quite a lot of Tier 7 vehicles. Imagine this thing fighting off against a T29. To be honest, it's not too outlandish, right? It has the hull of a KV3. Why does this vehicle need to have preferential matchmaking? Because it's from a time when Wargaming gave special matchmaking to these low-tier, ultra-rare collector's tanks that they either gave out at super special events or alternatively they were for buying the collector's edition of World of Tanks. So you'd have to spend several $100s to be able to get vehicles like the Panzer IIJ or even the Su-70. No, sorry, the BTSV is the one that I'm trying to think about. The tank that wears its sunglasses over its turret. But then a few years later, after Wargaming stopped doing all of these collector's edition tanks, so to say, they started to just sell them in the store for, I think it was about €50, and you got, I think, a lot of gold with it as well. They do that with the Panzer IIJ as well. They will put it in the game and they will ask you to buy €100 worth of gold and then give you a free Panzer IIJ. But really what people are doing is just buying €100 worth of gold, but they really want the Panzer IIJ. And some people probably don't even really want the gold, or they're going to use it to go and blow off buying some premium time or even just converting some free experience, which is one of the worst ways to invest your money in World of Tanks, by the way. What I'm trying to suggest is that the KV220, Wargaming changed it from being an extra rare tank that maybe you wouldn't see on the battlefield very frequently to now being something that you do see. And if you're a knowledgeable player, and most of the knowledgeable players are going to be the ones who have rare tanks like this, the ones that are willing to spend those €50 on the game. Do you expect all of the new players to have had a chance to purchase this tank? No, I don't think it's been sold for a substantial amount of time, although I don't know that for sure when this vehicle was last sold. One thing I will highlight though is how do you expect all of these little puppies on the enemy team, apart from maybe the Churchill 3, the Tier 5 premium vehicle, to actually deal with me? What are they meant to do? How are they meant to figure out that this vehicle is a Tier 7 heavy tank hull armor and they have no chance to be able to penetrate it unless they load the gold and they manage to get pretty much the side of the vehicle, or alternatively they shoot the turret? But that's kind of reverse thinking on a vehicle like this, right? It's not as if it's a very popular tank that you're seeing in the matchmaker frequently that you'd expect people to be able to learn. These rare vehicles with just outrageous freaky statistics that just shouldn't exist in the game allow dedicated players to jump in them either for some crew training or just because they want to pad up their win ratio a little bit. When I play this thing solo, even when I'm not particularly try-harding over the first 30 games that I've played in this tank, I'm able to win over 3/4 of my games. I am influencing, I think it's 76% win rate in this vehicle so far, and I'm not so impressed by that. I'm sure if I was absolutely try-harding in this vehicle, and now that I've got a turbocharger on this vehicle and I'm able to go a lot faster in the tank, it's making it even more deadly in those kind of situations for being able to actually get into the fray, which was one of the things that was definitely holding the back previously. I'd expect that if I was try-harding in this tank, I could achieve something like an 80% win ratio. How is that fair that one tank, because of completely broken statistics, because the player spent 50 euros on getting the tank, will frankly just ruin the game for the 15 players on the enemy team, and it will also affect the players on your own team? How are you meant to compete against a vehicle like this for kills, for damage? Inside a close game like this, I guess you could argue, well, your team is actually having the battle won for them by you. Do you think they're really enjoying that? Do you enjoy sitting back and just watching an overpowered vehicle on your team going and winning it for you? Well, possibly, but more often than not, they're going to be on the enemy team, right? And then you're hopeless and you're helpless, and there's nothing that you can do about it. All of these things do add up to the KV-222. The reason why I'm ashamed to play this tank inside World of Tanks is because I think it's categorically what is wrong with low tiers in World of Tanks. And this is tier 5 as well. This isn't kind of your tier 2 overpowered vehicles or your tier 3 overpowered vehicles that Wargaming like to brush under the carpet. It's a tier 5 tank. Tier 5 is meant to be the mid part of the game where people start to care, people arguably start to take it a little bit more seriously, or at least it's where the players, it's where Wargaming are trying to land their players from the tutorial that's inside the game. They give everybody that tier 6 vehicle for free, and they'll encourage them to be able to play at tier 5. I feel like Wargaming have kind of given up with tier 1, 2, 3, and 4. But to have this vehicle at tier 5, literally destroying matchmaking if an experienced player like me would be able to play it, and even not, you could be a terrible player and you could just play this vehicle, and purely the puppies aren't going to know where to penetrate it, and to give that player an unfair advantage purely because they had a lot of money to burn inside the game. That is, in my opinion, the definition of pay to win. And I think it's strongly why this game will never truly be able to grow again. Because Wargaming have put these monstrosities in the game, and every once in a while they'll bring them back to, I don't know, try to collect some cash and inject it. I'm not saying that World of Tanks needs to be developed for free. That's obviously not realistic. I love the game, I want to support it, but I want to support it in ways with, for example, skins. I want to try and support it in ways of accelerating my progress to be able to get new vehicles if I simply can't wait. I want to accelerate my progress that way. I don't want to purchase overpowered vehicles to be able to have an advantage. Maybe I did back in the day, but these days it's just absolutely detrimental to the health of the game. And importantly, how is this game ever meant to grow again with more and more players having more and more vehicles like this and just seal clubbing at the low tiers? How are these new players, the growing players, the ones that we want to try and nurture to be able to grow up to be the mid-tier players or even the high-tier players in the game, why would they continue? Why would they keep playing the game? Why wouldn't they just Alt F4 and go and play a game where, frankly, one single tank that's worth 50 euros in the hands of a capable player is able to win 2/3 of all of, well, sorry, not 2/3, I keep saying that, over 3/4 of all of the battles that they play. No individual tank should be that influential. And more importantly, no tank which costs money directly should be that influential. What were the enemy team meant to do apart from to load gold and fire at the turret armor of this vehicle? How were they meant to stop me with a cool-headed medal, a steel wall for managing to block 1,800 damage, a high caliber for dealing over 3,000 damage in a tier 5 tank and killing half of the enemy team with 7 kills to secure a top gun, and you also make credits as well playing this vehicle, even if you do fire all of that gold you saw me spewing forth out of my vehicle and also resupplying premium consumables to boot. I checked the statistics of a lot of the players on the enemy team after this game, and I could see that a lot of them had about 1,000 games of World of Tanks played, and they probably deserved to win this battle. They deserved to win through their good plays, not be absolutely clubbed for 1,766 base experience for a vehicle that should frankly never be at tier 5, let alone have preferential matchmaking. Which is why on the European server, the KV2-22 has nearly a 57% average win ratio and has been played by 164,000 players. What was once a dirty little secret that was infrequently on the battlefield is becoming more and more popular, and at 50 euros a pop, usually the purchase price for a vehicle like this, at least in the gold value, imagine how many millions of games of World of Tanks on the European server have been ruined by vehicles like this, and more importantly, all of those millions of players who had to play against this vehicle who have had their game experience, I think ruined might be a bit of an exaggeration, but it's like little chips, little reasons to not want to continue playing up the game. After you get your brand new tier 5 heavy Churchill and you're thinking, wow, this is it, I'm finally going to actually do well. Oh wait, no, there's a premium Soviet heavy tank with preferential matchmaking on the enemy team who's paid 50 euros so that he can just basically feast on my soul. And I truly think that pay-to-win vehicles like the KV2-22 and the detrimental impact that they have on such an important part of the World of Tanks matchmaker at those mid-tiers has got to be one of the reasons why the stigma has either stopped people from starting playing World of Tanks, or alternatively, after they've experienced a drubbing at the hands of one of these behemoths, turned them off from continuing their adventures inside the game. Which is why I condemn vehicles like this, and specifically Wargaming profiting from them directly. Surely there have got to be better ways to profit from your game by having balanced vehicles and all of the new custom features in the game, rather than profiting from vehicles that just make the game worse. And I'd be really interested to know what all of your opinions are out there of vehicles like this and the impact that they have on the integrity of World of Tanks, and also your enjoyment of the matchmaker at those mid and low tiers. Do you see them as a big deal, or do you frankly not really care if somebody wants to pay 50 euros to have an insane advantage at the mid tiers? So that's it for today. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, but if you hated it, give it a thumbs down. I'm looking forward to having a look in the comment section of this one. It should be interesting. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.